Welcome back, Home Tour Podcast, episode 27. And today we are going to be talking about how entrepreneurs, we have all these different ways of leverage. So the leveraging of entrepreneurs. And so we have our guest with us today, Joanna.
Hello.
And I'm Tyler Willis Media.
Yep.
No longer Tyler Willis Photography, Tyler Willis Media. And I'm going to kick it over to Payton. Payton, what you got going on over there?
Yeah, I'm excited that you're Tyler Willis Media now.
Media!
Officially you are, but I'm Payton.
Shout out to Eric Schleppian, by the way. Thank you for getting me all set up.
That's right. I'm Payton Peoples and Company, Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Partners, and I'm so excited that Joanna is with us today because if you think about leverage in general, like what does that look like? What does that mean? How do you do that well as an entrepreneur and not, one, break the bank, two, when do you know that it's time to do those things? And you just everything about, because I am a type A control freak, self-proclaimed, figuring out this leverage space can be very overwhelming for entrepreneurs. So when
100%.
Yeah. So like when Joanna and I became friends, I was like, you are amazing at everything I am not. So please teach me your ways. So I am so excited that you are joining us so that you can share your expertise with the world. So all things leverage. What does that look like for entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me on. One of the things that I love about leverage is it's a conversation that you have to have over and over and over again, because as entrepreneurs, we are typically control freaks about something, right? We don't all have to be quite as type A as Payton and I are, but everybody is in their craft for a reason, right? And you're passionate about building your brand. So ultimately, I think the challenge with leverage is trust, right?
Yes.
And that's uncomfortable.
Yes.
Write that down.
Yeah. So when we think
it's so hard too, once you break that trust, to try to get it back.
Yep, absolutely. And so a lot of entrepreneurs have been burned in trying to hire leverage. So our trust is broken, but really the fear is breaking the trust of our clients. So it's like, so I was strapping my baby, I have a 4-month-old, into his little like harness thing that I wear. And my mom, who I love, comes over and she's like, hey, let me help. And I said, do not help. Because if anybody pinches this baby other than me, I will livid, right? So don't pinch the baby, right? And that's what we think with our clients. Like if anybody's going to let them down, God forbid it be anyone, but it better be me. It better not be somebody else, because I'm going to.
But I'm sharing, like that's an extension of me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So it really is trust. But if we talk about what leverage is, it's tools, systems, or people that you add to your business to lighten your load. Right. And so if we are
sounds wonderful,
right? Doesn't it? It sounds easy. It sounds so easy. So we add a little Google platform, we add a little admin. It's no big deal. No, that's not.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
How it works, right? So I think once we get past kind of the trust trauma that everyone is going to have, and it is identifying which tasks can be leveraged, which tasks are pulling you away from the big money makers. And sometimes that in and of itself is uncomfortable, because sometimes that means leveraging something you enjoy. Right? And when people talk about leverage, they're all like quality of life and work-life balance. First of all, I don't think there is anything like work-life balance, right? That doesn't exist. I heard somebody say one time, it's not work-life balance, because if it was balanced, then you would never tip to either side. And that's not how life works. And also balance is stagnant, and like life and entrepreneurship is not stagnant. Right. So if we are looking at the ways that we can increase our business, or increase our time with family, or increase our money, right? You got to identify why you're adding leverage. Then it's figuring out the tasks that can realistically happen. So I love my calendar. I love it. If somebody shares a calendar event with me, I'm like, I wish I'd gotten there first. I would have done it a little differently. Okay.
I'm going to need that to look just so on my calendar.
That's exactly right. Or somebody shares it with me and they like overshare the info. And I'm like, yeah, but I've got my color coding. I've got my notifications. I've got my thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how my calendar looks is not making me money. Getting my butt to where my calendar tells me to go, that is what is making me money.
Bingo.
So I think it is learning over time, and it does take time, to let go of certain things so that your time and your money and your energy can be spent in the right place. And the reason I really like saying tools, systems, or leverage, systems, it may be you building them up. You may not be able to leverage out building them up, but then you have the system in place that does act as leverage. Tool could be anything. I mean, it could be Instacart. That is a tool of leverage in your business.
Yes.
100%.
Can I get an amen?
Right?
Yes.
Yes
and yes.
DoorDash, because you're sending crumble cookies to your client and you don't have time to go pick it up and deliver it yourself, right? It can be all kinds of things like that. A lot of times people think leverage is people. Leverage can be people, but I think there are a lot of steps in between where systems and tools can come into it. Like, what does that look like in your business?
Yeah, I've got a very practical one right here. So I was trained using Adobe InDesign for all things when it came to marketing. Whenever I left that company, I had so much knowledge of how to use Adobe InDesign. Then Canva came out, and it takes 30 seconds to do something in Canva, whereas in InDesign takes about 45 minutes. Of course, I switched because my time was better used somewhere else, not sitting in InDesign. Being like, Canva, done, instant. So like that right there alone is another piece of leverage too.
Right. That is a tool that you implemented that was for time, efficiency, probably financial as well, right? It was a tool that you could make a transition. Did you enjoy the other platform?
I did, because I could then feel like I was more accomplished. Like I designed this from the ground up versus Canva. I took a template. So there was a piece of, I had to let go a piece of the creative control. But for me, I'd rather have something that's aesthetically pleasing across like 90 pieces of content versus spending all my time on one piece of content.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, and I think too, as entrepreneurs, it's so easy to immediately think, okay, well, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. Like, well, maybe I could have somebody do this or somebody do that or come in and help me with these things. And that's like where I had like paralysis with identifying where I could figure out leverage. And it became easier for me to accept leverage because, one, I don't accept help from anyone ever in life at any time. So that's my own trauma, but that's another episode. But then figuring out or getting to the point where I did allow leverage into my business, into my life, and then having that trust broken because we ride that roller coaster, having a bad experience, and then immediately being like, nope, I'm going to take that back. Not doing that. So the healthier way for me to approach it, kind of going back to what you were saying about like Instacart and DoorDash, figuring out how can I leverage things for my family and then figure out how to leverage things for my business. So I was just taking baby steps. So like, I hired a house cleaner and I brought in somebody to help me because that gives me back my time to be able to focus on other things. And then when I need help with groceries, because I don't have time, there's just not enough hours in the day to get to Publix and Aldi and Walmart and, all the places, Instacart can do it for me while I'm at work. So figuring out those leverage pieces really helped me. And then that almost like heals some trauma too, because you're like, oh, yep, look at this positively moving in the right direction and they're doing what I asked 100%. Them to do. So then I'm able to, when I am ready to make the step in my business to leverage something else out, it's not as painful.
Right.
Because I've had a recent positive experience.
Yep.
But the trauma's still there and it's very difficult. So like as a new entrepreneur or somebody who's new into their business, what do you feel like, what's your best form? Because I know you're an admin, you have an admin, like you're very much, proponent of get the help, leverage the things, use it well. So what does that look like for new entrepreneurs or people who are new into their business?
That's tricky because I think the fact that I am a director of operations and I have an admin. And so I know how to communicate to my admin, I hope. because I know how I need to be communicated to, right? Like you can't, one of the biggest mistakes is just like leaving your admin to it. And a month later you check in. You can't do that, right? Especially in the beginning, especially in the first 6 months. So I would say for new business owners, first of all, you may not need leverage yet. Okay. We all three know that when you start out a business, you're grinding and it is really hard and it's not going to be comfortable, and that's okay. So, I think I'm a huge fan of coaching. And if you can't afford a coach, then find a buddy who's done it really well, who will have lunch with you and buy their lunch and pick their brain and say, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you feel it, because it's about hitting a ceiling, getting the help, and then going to the next level. So if you feel like you're hitting a ceiling, even if you're in your early days, then really identify what feels like it's holding you back. And it may be emotional, and that's okay too. Like, I feel like the next session needs to be like therapy for entrepreneurs. Like,
yes.
That's
Yep.
But
that'll be coming in season 3.
Right, there you go. There you go. We are not licensed professionals.
No.
So, but I do think that it is, what is making you feel like you're needing that help? Or what's making you feel like you're spinning your wheels? I am a huge fan of the people, of the tool systems people. It is I said to Payton the other day, like, I love my job. Like, I love being a director of operations. I love it. It's one of like 7 different things that I do, but I absolutely adore it. I wouldn't want to give that up. I want my admin to feel the same way, right? I think people in your life can make a huge difference, but you have to be able to pump the brakes and train the person. You can't throw them in. It's not fair to them. And it doesn't mean that they come in and that they are you. They're like a mirror of you.
Correct.
Right. And I think some people want that too. Like, I can do 50 different things at once, so my admin should be able to do 50 different things at once. Well, your admin didn't choose to start that business. They chose to partner with you in yours.
Bingo.
So let's identify the places that they can be successful and how we can train them. So, for example, if you think that your invoicing and whatever, software you're using for your finances, that just gets really overwhelming. It may not be comfortable turning over all of that to an admin that you don't know, but can they generate the invoices for you? Right? In the beginning, they generate it. They send a screenshot to you. You say, good to go. Takes you 2 seconds to look at it. You'll know immediately if it's wrong, right? But you haven't had to type in invoice 407, and then they can send it. And then the next time they're going to do the exact same thing. They're still going to send it to you, and you're still going to approve it. And it's going to take you 2 seconds, and you're shaving off time little by little. And eventually they're going to run your entire invoicing system, and you're not going to have to touch it, and you're not going to have to think about it. And probably they're going to catch mistakes that you would have made. Right. So it's finding little things that you can give to someone. And that's tricky. Do you hire a full-time admin, a part-time admin, a virtual assistant? Like, my admin is a virtual assistant. Like, she, lives overseas and she's a complete rock star. And like, I've never met her in person. I want to go hang out with her because we're such good friends, but like, I've never met her in person, but we Zoom twice a week, right? Like, we are in each other's lives. So I think it can take a lot of forms based on the tasks you need and the money you have to spend on it. But as a new entrepreneur, it's really identifying the places that are dragging you down, holding you back away from that 20%, right? We have the 80-20 rule. Like, you got to be focused on your 20%. So what's the 80% that someone else can help you with?
Oh, I love it. I got a quick question on this one. So I get this one all the time. Tyler, you're so overwhelmed. You need to hire a second shooter. So I train second shooter, but then everybody wants to still book me because they don't want to trust the new person that I've personally trained.
Yeah.
How do you then, because what you said, you love the people behind the leveraging of the tool. So how would you then train your clientele to trust who you've trained to be like, hey, they're going to be me, but not an exact mirror copy, but it lets me to continue to grow. So how do you do that transition piece with your clients?
So I think there's one of 2 ways you can do it. The first is with a guarantee. If this person shoots it and you don't like it, then I will go reshoot it. Now, that's cost prohibitive for you. It's time prohibitive for you. But I bet if that client has the
Has that
balls to
guarantee.
say, I don't like your work, first of all. Okay.
Yep.
That may get edited out. I'm okay with it.
No,
Nope.
it won't. It'll stay.
If your client will say, like, I really don't like the work that was given, if you think it's good, right? Now, if there's a mistake, you're going to correct it anyway. But if you're like, that was really
Correct.
good, they say they didn't like it. Okay, tell me what you would like for me to do differently,
Yep.
right? It's going to take a lot on that end, but I bet the next time you're not going to have an issue, right? It's also going to be the best training for your person. Hey, I got to go reshoot this because you left the toilet seat up, dude. Like, you know, whatever it is. Like, and it's great learning.
Yep.
The other part of it is I'm going to give an example of a local business here who it's a chiropractor business, and they have 3 doctors that started off with 1. Then she added a second, then she added a third. There is no way for you to book with 1 doctor. They have removed that option.
Interesting.
You make an appointment with the name of the business.
And who you get is who you get.
Yep. And some people don't come because of that. But that business has done nothing but grow.
That makes sense.
Right? So, because you're getting new clients, you're getting new people. And I get to see the original doctor. You know, I go every week because I got like neck stuff, y'all. So I go every single week. And I see her every so often, but she's not the only one doing my adjustments. And what they say is we are a collaborative practice. And you will get one of the 3 of us. And we are training and we're talking in team meetings, but I can't guarantee that it's me. And you can, I mean, really with your clients, Tyler, in your situation, I would say there's one of me and I have 1 family. And if something comes up with my family and I need to be there, I have trained somebody that I trust to do the job just like I would do it. And like, I dare somebody to be like, I don't care, you know, but we feel guilty. We feel bad about it, right?
Yeah.
It's
100%.
It's more so usually our reaction. And I get it. If I like somebody, I'm like, I want to work with you.
Right.
I don't want to work with the second person. But if that becomes the way your business is set up, you know, you can hire Tyler Willis Media and somebody from our company will come and do a stellar job. So you don't get to choose who it is.
Bingo.
Because they're not running your business, dude. It's your business.
Right.
It's true that.
Right?
Yeah. But I mean, it's kind of like, you know, I preach this all the time. People ask, you know, about boundaries, setting boundaries with clients. And I'm always very upfront with, when I hire a client, you know, or if I'm going to a listing appointment, this is an interview for me just as much as it is for them. So if I don't feel like it's a good fit, or if I feel like, you know, we're not vibing or whatever, I will be the first one to be like, deuces, not interested. Like, let's hook you up with somebody else because this isn't going to work. Because I'm very protective and I've learned a lot of very hard lessons in this business being an entrepreneur, because people will walk all over you no matter how strong you are. They will walk all over you. So figuring out how to communicate to people and having that expectation of, this is how I run my business, and you will get your needs met. I will make sure of it, and we will exceed it, and we will do these things because that's how I am, and those are my expectations for myself. But it might not be on your time, you know, terms. It might be that you get it at 8 a.m. instead of 5 p.m. Like, but you're going to get it. Like, so it's teaching people those boundaries and teaching people around you. And it's very much that same type of thing with teaching our clients. Like, you teach them, they want to they trust you. And so then it's teaching them, in the same concept of teaching them the boundaries of how you run your business. It's teaching them, if you trust me with your largest investment, you know, in my case with real estate transaction, if you trust me, then my hope is that you trust whoever is I'm bringing in to be part of this transaction as well. Like, and if you don't, if something happens, you need to tell me, because that's a direct reflection of me, because I'm extending myself out into the world through this other avenue, this other person, this other piece of leverage. And if that doesn't match, I am also the first one to say, bye. Like, not doing it because I am not going down with the sinking ship. Like,
Right.
I have expectations and I am not doing that. So, my name means something to me, and I have built my company to match that. And the people that I'm leveraging in my life, the tools I'm leveraging in my life, I hold to that same standard. So it's teaching people how to treat you, but like that includes your clients. Like,
it also includes your admin, if we're talking specifically about an admin or an employee of any kind. And remembering that you've lived in your brain for however old you are. And that person has lived in your brain for 3 months. And we have to have very realistic now, they can't burn down a transaction, right? Like, there are certain things that just cannot happen. But when little mistakes are made, one of the biggest things that can blow up a relationship with an admin is the CEO of the business blaming the admin. Right?
Yeah.
Because you might have a great person who's really working hard and just learning, and really you as a business owner needs to say, yep, that was my mistake. Sometimes when I say that, I'm like, I don't even know what she's talking about. Like, I don't even I haven't a clue what task they're talking about, but I'm like, yes, I made that mistake and I will fix it. And then I'm like, hey girl, what are they talking about? Right? Like, I have no clue. It doesn't matter. Right? It's my business. And money was not lost. Nothing huge happened. I might be a little embarrassed that there was a mistake made, but ultimately it's going to get fixed. And the admin knows that I have her back, just like she needs to have mine, because it is unrealistic to think that we are going to hire somebody and expect them to have our back when we don't have theirs. And often that happens. Right? We're like, we're going to give you access to our email and social media accounts and calendar and client and database and whatever that looks like. And then we're like, but if you have a typo, we're done. What? Like, that's illogical, right? Like, that's crazy. So I think it's also identifying, Payton, exactly what you said. I have a brand and I have built this, and this is my reputation, and like, it will be stellar. And people are human, right? And I have been building these things for so long that it's second nature to me, but this person is learning the job. And so if I put so much on them that they're learning it too quickly and making too many mistakes, then whose fault is that really? And that's uncomfortable.
That's why I don't like leverage. It's too introspective, and I need a therapist. Thanks.
Yeah, it is uncomfortable. It's hard. It's really hard.
It is. It's very hard because you spend all this time, money, energy doing all these things, and you do it by yourself. That's how entrepreneurs are. It's just, we grind, we work, we don't sleep, we do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to reach our goals. But then one day you wake up and you're like, I don't feel fulfilled. Like, I've hit the ceiling and I don't know what do I do now? And either the answer is to continue to drive yourself into the ground trying to do everything, or step into the uncomfortable zone and find your next piece of leverage that's going to help you break through that ceiling.
Right.
But, if somebody is trying to grow their business and they feel like maybe they're at that point, like, I've done all I can do. I feel like I'm running myself into the ground. I don't feel like my business is growing. I feel like it still can grow, but it's not. What do you feel like their first
step
needs to be? Like, what I mean, I know that probably looks different for a lot of different people, but in generalized for entrepreneurs, what does that kind of look like?
I think the first step would be finding somebody who is in the same industry, is doing it really well, and not too many steps ahead of you. Because a lot of times people are like, I want to go to the best blank in my area and get advice from them. Sure, you can totally do that. But because I have a 4-month-old, I'm going to bring it back to that. I'm not asking people who have 17-year-olds what they did with a newborn. They forgot.
Right. It's been a minute.
They don't remember. They don't, that's trauma. And you're like, I'm not going to remember it, right?
No.
I asked somebody who has 3 kids under 5. I'm like, how are you doing it? What does that look like for you? So you need to find somebody who's just a little bit ahead, who's been doing it a couple years longer, who has maybe 1 piece of leverage or maybe 2 that you don't have, just a little bit ahead of you and doing it well. and pick their brain. And that does a couple of things. One, you're probably going to create a friendship there in a working professional relationship.
100%.
Yeah. You also are going to get somebody who you're going to like grow with instead of somebody that's so far ahead that you're like, well, you have 4 admins and your budget is,
$1 million.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that's so overwhelming. So I think step 1 to answer your question is just find that person or those people that you can start to talk to about it. May be able to tell you to pump your brakes. Like, it's okay. You're really not at a ceiling. You are just in a tough month. Because if you hire an admin in a tough month and next month you don't need them, then that's uncomfortable too, right? So make sure you pick somebody who's honest and direct, not a yes person, but somebody who's going to be like, I don't really think it's that bad. Or, yeah, I remember feeling that, and this is how I managed it. So I think conversations with people, coaches, peers, that's really step 1. Finding things like this to listen to, right? Podcasts, read books, see what resources that you can, kind of ingest and digest and feel like it's becoming part of your daily thoughts. And then it feels like an assignment. I'm a homework girl. So like, it feels like an assignment, like homework, like I can do this. It doesn't feel so emotional, so overwhelming. So that would be the first thing that I would do, or I guess the first 2 things that I would do. And then it is seeing what options are out there. So can you identify, is it tools? Is it systems? Is it leverage? What budget do I have surrounding any one of those that I choose? I don't think you can't start with the budget. You got to start with the people, right? You got to start with the conversation. Or real soon after that, you need to be looking at your budget. So, because a lot of times we don't realize what all those little tools are really costing us. Like, you could hire a whole admin for all the little tools that you've added on, but it's more comfortable to have a bunch of apps on your phone than have a person that you're responsible for. But we tell ourselves that it's cheaper, but it's not always, right? So know your numbers. You got to know your numbers. Look at your budget and then start seeing what options are out there. There are shared admins, people that work for 2 different people in similar worlds, but not exactly the same. So you're not like worried about business sharing. So you have shared admins, and you have, virtual, you have in-person but part-time. There are people all the time looking for like weird hour admin work, right? I mean, they're trying to work around a spouse's schedule and childcare and like all this stuff, and that may work to keep cost lower because they really only need 12 hours a week, and that's really all you can afford and all you need right now.
Right.
The caveat to that is if you fall in love with them and they are a rock star and they don't have the capacity in their life to increase their hours, then you may have to piece out with them.
Find somebody.
Right. So looking at budget and then looking at options. What fits your budget? Interview a ton of people. Like, don't meet salespeople, get sold to. Don't meet somebody and you're like, yes, that was great.
Sparkle look.
Yes. And that's everything I've ever wanted. You said all the right things. Like, right. No. You need to interview. Maybe have somebody else interview them. Like, that's weird. People don't do it that often, but it's helpful. Like, what red flags do you see? And then move. It's a slow to hire, quick to fire. That's what Keller Williams says, right? And you have to take the process slowly, and it will slow you down, and you have to be okay with that.
That is the hardest part.
Yep.
That is the hardest part. I'll say that from experience, because again, with being an entrepreneur, you're grinding, you're working, you're going after it. Because if you slow down for even a minute, you could lose everything. You don't move that rock forward higher up the hill. It's going to come back on you and take you with it. Like, so knowing that you have to somehow hold that boulder up, slow down just long enough to where you can bring that in, but then knowing that the other side of that means you have a whole army, if you're a visual person like me, a whole army of people helping you push that boulder up the hill versus you doing it by yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, the end result, killing it, but figuring out how to like pause that for a minute and bring the people in and teach them how to push the boulder with you, that is painful.
It hurts. It hurts.
It does.
So like, Let's talk a little bit about like where could you find these kind of people? Like, I don't want to say like you could probably go on Fiverr, like that kind of stuff, but like where would be a more like authentic place to try to find an admin to fit in a piece of a tool? Like, where would you even go?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tyler. I feel like it's different for every person. And I get a little annoyed when people give that as an answer, but I'm going to do it. Some people are really comfortable on social media and putting something out there saying, hey, friends of friends, this is the type person I am looking for. And using that community and that platform can be way more authentic than Indeed. Right?
True that.
So that may work for some people, but telling some people to put something on Facebook for hiring makes them like break out in hives, you know? So that answer for some people would not work. I think that there are some really great virtual assistant companies that have already vetted the people that you can go through a system like that if you're wanting a little more hand-holding, if that's the option that you're looking for. I think also talking to other professionals in your industry is huge. So one of the reasons that, you know, people flock to larger companies and Payton in real estate, larger brokerages, is just the exposure of other people, right? So sometimes people have gone through the interview process and they're like, hey, we had this rock star admin, but her like fear was this, or her, you know, she wasn't as good in this. So we needed that. And you're like, oh, I actually don't need that. That's something I do really well, right? But they didn't hire that person for whatever reason. It doesn't mean the person wasn't worth hiring, right? So I think looking at what other people have done and other avenues and seeing who you can talk to. I mean, I typically would probably go to social media first.
Yeah.
Like that's my
I would say like for our age range, that's probably
Yeah.
like that elder millennial generation where we grew up without the internet. Like we remember life before the internet, but we're comfortable with the internet. We have a different level of trust versus somebody who's maybe 5 or 10 years older than us is like, hell no.
Right. And also,
my yellow book.
I probably hired, when I was like in the office hiring, I think I hired 6 people, and 2 were from people who knew them and 4 were from Indeed. Because I do them. I would run both, right? Right. And sometimes you can find the people that you need, but you have to take the time to go through the applications and vet them and background check them and like all the things.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is more comfortable. And sometimes that is, because also I will say this, if somebody says, oh my gosh, my friend sounds like the perfect person, then really think about your relationship with that referrer.
Yes.
Right? You need to be able to fire that person and not lose, you know, your best friend since kindergarten.
Right.
We don't want to do that. So that would be the kind of danger of social media stuff. But I love it when it's like a friend of a friend of a friend. Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Bring them on. That's the person I want to talk to. So I don't know. There's a lot of options for how to get started with hiring and kind of finding your pool of people. But it depends on your comfort level and what you're really wanting to do. I mean, shooties, you can go to a coffee shop and say to the barista, like, man, I got to hire somebody. And they're like, oh, have you talked to so-and-so?
They're sitting over there in the corner right now.
Yeah. You know, you never know what, like, you just got to get out there and talk to people. It's networking. Hiring is another form of networking. So. Yeah.
And I would say it's probably similar. I speak from experience with real estate, but it's probably similar across the board in any industry. But there's likely Facebook groups, networking groups, something online where even if you're not immediately surrounded by other people from, you know, your industry, that you can connect with in some way and ask them, where did they hire people? Where did they find people? How did that work for them? Because in real estate groups all the time, Keller Williams or not, for us, like people are in there saying, oh, I found a great, you know, I used this company and I found a great admin, or I, you know, hired somebody to help me do X, Y, and Z in Canva because that gives me hives to think about having to do that. Like, that's my love language. I would love to live in Canva if I could. Like, so, you know, that's not something I would ever think about leveraging out. But for somebody else, that's a make or break. You know, they want to die thinking about having to work in Canva. And that's the best $100 they ever spent, was to leverage somebody to help them design things in Canva. So figuring out like what are your absolute yeses and nos of things that you were just like, I am so happy for you to take these things off my plate versus the no, I'd be okay if I kept that. Like, I would really rather you do this. Like, for me, that's the financials and the, P&Ls and the tracking and the Excel spreadsheets and all that. No, you take that. Please take it far away from me. I don't want to see it. But all the fun, colory, marketing stuff, I want all that. So, like, figuring out what you need in your business, too, because ultimately, if you're going to pay somebody to bring in and use their leverage, you want to feel like they're doing something to make your life easier, not stress you out more.
I also feel like it's identifying the kind of personality that you need. So a lot of business owners, not all by any means, but a lot of business owners on the DISC profile have some high D in their personality, right? Well, some ridiculous percent of the population that I will not quote on here because I'll get it wrong, but some ridiculous percent of the population are SCs. It's the most common of the DISC. Yeah. So if you are looking for someone who's going to work for you, you can. Now, I don't want to. This is going to sound like I'm telling you to poach people, and that's not really what I mean, but hear me out. You can look for businesses where like they're doing the thing, but under someone else. So let's take a massage therapist, for example. Okay. They've gone to school, they like doing it, but they don't want to own their own. They want the safety. So they are at, I don't know, Joe Schmo mega chain spa company, right? Because they don't want to be their own business owner. They want to practice what they love doing and they have a passion, but like they don't want to own their own. Okay. You have an individual massage therapist who's killing it, who wants to be their own business owner and make their own hours, but they need some help. Adding that person to their team where they can get paid a little bit more, they have more flexibility in their schedule, but they're still not a business owner. That is great. So Tyler, thinking about you, another shooter, who's somebody who is like killing it at a wedding venue. They're like, dang, if I have to work another Saturday and Sunday. Like, it's all Saturday and Sundays, like all the time. Like that's the only option. Like there's no Wednesday option. Like, so, they've got the eye, but they need somebody to handhold the stepping out part, right? Like the trust part. They're not going to launch their own business, but they may kill it partnering with you. And then you've already got evidence of their work. Because I imagine just like everybody thinks that they can sell a house, everybody thinks they can take a picture of one. And we probably know that ain't true.
That's right.
So I think finding somebody who is doing something similar, but maybe doesn't want the responsibility that you have as a business owner, they may be a great option of someone to talk to, especially when we're talking very specific artistic skill based or experience based. That can be really helpful. What are they doing already?
I think that's so interesting what you brought up about the DISC profile, because I love any kind of personality test, Enneagrams, all of it. Sign me up. I want to know all the things. But it's also really important, I feel like, as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, to one, not only know that information about yourself, but then to understand what those look like in other people.
Yep.
So that, like, I would almost venture to say, like, if I'm bringing people into my world, that needs to be part of like the interview process of understanding, what their personality type is, what their Enneagram is, and then doing the research to figure out, okay, well, when they say, how do they feel the most loved or most heard, or what does that look like in conflict, so that you as a business owner and a boss can articulate things well, and it doesn't feel like confrontation. It feels like a productive step forward instead of I got in trouble or I have to get somebody in trouble. Like it's more about like you're speaking the other person's language and showing. And I will say, I think this is something that our generation does really well, because I don't see other generations before us treating people this way or taking the time to understand people this way. It's just you suck, go away, which is partly why I can't stand corporate America. But us taking the time to understand that, not only about ourselves, but about the people in our world, makes it a better experience for everybody. Like, because I looked it up, the D type personality profile on the disc, also known as the D style or dominance, is the rarest personality type.
Right.
Couldn't have told me that, because I would have been like, what are you talking about?
Well, and we're surrounded by them all day,
Right.
every day. Everyone in our life is a high D because they're all the business owners. Right. That's what's so wild.
Yes.
Every staff that I've ever run, I have had disc profile and love language, because you have to know how to love on your people.
Right.
In fact, when I was a teacher, I had the love languages for all of my students. And it was whatever they perceived their little cute love language was at 15. It's probably shifted and changed, but that didn't matter.
Right.
In my theater class, was it words of affirmation? Because then my notes on their monologue were going to look a little different.
Right. So different. Yep.
Right. So it's so important to know how to interact with people. And the thing is, we do it with our clients. We do it all day, every day with our clients. We're profiling constantly. So why wouldn't we do it with the leverage in our world?
Mm-hmm.
We have to.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's just the nice thing to do.
Right. Like, just be a nice human.
Yep. It's just the kind thing to do. And a lot of times, high D personalities forget that. Because we're like, go, 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 go. I don't have time. I don't have time. Especially people that are not DIs, because the I's like the people pleasing, like the social butterfly. So if you're not a DI, which I am not, I forget the I part. I'm like the people part. I forget. You have to slow down and like love on the people, because that's how you're going to create this world around you of whether it's official leverage or not, or whether it's just support as an entrepreneur. Like that's how you're going to build it up.
Mm-hmm. I love all of this. I could talk about this all day, but
literally,
I
do have one more question though.
Sure.
Yeah.
So in the beginning stages, like whenever you first started out, did you ever have that moment of like that panic whenever you started giving over the leverage of like, I've gone too far now, I can't pull it back, I've just got to trust the process?
I still have it.
Like, yeah, that's where I was getting to. Like, you never let go of that, like that fear of the control, because I think that's the main reason why a lot of people don't find the tools in the people, is because they feel like if they don't do it perfectly themselves, then it's not going to get done. And so, like, I have a perfect example. I'm starting something up with Payton and a couple of other people. It's something I wanted to try to do all by myself. I couldn't, because I thought I could do the whole process, and I was like, no, this is impossible. And so I pulled in people, and I was like, hey, together we can collectively do this. And so, like, I was trying to do this kind of stuff for like 5-6 years by myself and just could never do it. And then eventually I was just like, to be able to do it properly, I'm going to need expertise here, here, and then I can put my one little spin on it.
Yeah.
And so I think at the end of the day, I think it's just that fear, that what you said, trust, but then I also have to trust myself to let go. And so I think that's the hardest part, is just being able to trust yourself that you're making the right decisions.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things in that. The first is put in safeguards. I send a lot of emails in my director of ops role as my boss. I pretty much know how to sound like her. Like I can do it. There are some emails that I say, that is in your drafts. If you like it, hit send. Because there are some I
love it.
Mess with, right? I know Payton, contract to close, right? There are people that are like, I will do anything and everything for you, but I will not touch that commission agreement with a 10-foot pole. Because I'm not going to be responsible for doing that one wrong, right? You got to know what the limits. And you got to show your admin that it is okay to ask questions, because that will slow down and help you feel a little bit better about what's next. But I also want to touch on what you said about your upcoming project, because that feels like leverage because you tried to do it yourself, but that's just partnering with someone else. And that has to be viewed slightly differently, not much, but you are going to have a facet of that, and you have a partner that has a facet of that. It is not you leveraging something that is yours to someone else to do on your behalf.
I see what you're saying.
Right? So, and I think just making sure that mentally you know that is still trust, and it is still hard to let go of because it feels like your baby. But you didn't have ownership of it anyway, as this is a new venture. That's where we got to train our brains to go. It will be more comfortable.
Which makes total sense.
Yeah.
But because just thinking of it that way, I'm always like, oh, okay, cool.
Like whatever happens, because it hadn't happened before, right?
Right.
Exactly.
A whole new thing. And that will help, I think, our personality types just go, okay, we're going to try it. It's worth trying, because otherwise it wouldn't happen. It's the tasks that are happening and you're doing really well that you give over, that feel really uncomfortable. So is it, you have somebody and the first time they go do a shoot, you walk through all their raw footage with them and you say out loud everything that you would think. Why would I use this one? Why wouldn't I use this one? Then how am I going to edit them? Then what would I have done differently? Like if I was standing here, I would have done this, like walk them through. And then the next time you don't have to do all that. But it's slowing that process down, and probably they're not sending anything to a client for a hot second before you're reviewing.
Right? Exactly.
So you're putting those safeguards in place. But like still to this day, and I've worked with this person that I'm director of ops for in one way or another since 2019. And I'm still like, that email's in your drafts. It's ready to send. You hit send.
Whenever you're ready. That's right.
Yep. You get to hit the send button.
That's right.
Even now.
Add one extra period.
That's right. Yep. She'll make changes even now. And I'm like, okay, next time I'll be even better. Right. Like it's always an opportunity to learn. But you put those safeguards in place. But you'll still be uncomfortable. Just come up with ways you have to come up with ways personally to manage your own stress. And we all know that as business owners. And this is another place that will feel uncomfortable and then feel like stress. But in a year, it'll be better. Better.
I love that.
Yeah. Could sit here and literally go through all this all day long.
Right. Well, it's not something that a lot of people do well. It's something that a lot of people try and then they don't have a good experience with, and then they never do again, which hinders their business growth. Or they're so overwhelmed by the whole process of where to start, where to go, how do I even begin to allow somebody into my world like that? So I know, like, Joanna, you do, like, with your business, you kind of have, like, I don't even know what you call it, but, like, a hand-holding experience.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm sure you have a much better term for that. But
do an admin action hour is how it starts. Where I meet with the owner. The business owner, and then I meet with the admin, because sometimes they'll say things to me and they won't say it to each other, and I'm like, okay, I'll just tell. Like, it's fun.
Yeah. But teaching people how to talk to each other, how to work together. Identifying strengths and weaknesses on both sides. So utilizing services like that. Shit. It's the best $100 I've ever spent. Like,
well, and here's what's wild, Payton. And you saying that made me realize this in this way for the first time. We are hiring leverage to do the things that either is not making us a ton of money, or we're not enjoying, or that we're not doing well, right? And you're the person training them. So if you stink at financials and you're like, I really need somebody to do my financials, and you bring them in and they're like, okay, what do I do? And you're like, I don't know. That's why I'm not doing it. Right? No other large business does it that way. They bring in the person who's good at it to train the person to be good at it. But in small business world, we're like, I don't know.
Blind leading the blind. Yep.
The person doesn't do it well, and you're like, I can't work with you.
You're fired. Yep.
But you didn't fire yourself, and you were sucking at it too. Like, so that is a real challenge. And when I talk to a lot of people that are, I need somebody to help me stay organized, number one thing that I hear. And I'm like, great. In what ways can your admin help you stay organized? I don't know. And you expect them to know? That doesn't work. That's impossible. That's mind reading. That's some genie shit right there. Like, So having somebody come in and train them can be helpful. Have them meet with another admin, being willing to slow down long enough to make it happen. Above all, have a 30, 60, 90. For the love of God, have a 30, 60, 90 plan. What do you want them to master in the first 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days? And have it written out. It is the only fair thing to do. One, it keeps you from firing them on day 4. Because you'll get all in your head and emotional, and you'll be like, I'm getting payroll ready, and like, oh my God, and you fire them. Okay. Don't do
Too
that.
much adulting. I'm
right.
done.
If you have the first 30, here's what usually happens. The first 30 days, reasonable. 60 days, it's like a lifetime's worth of work. And if you look at it and you think, could I realistically accomplish this in 30 hours? If you have a full-time 40-hour person, could I realistically accomplish this in 30 hours a week? Because they're not moving at your pace, they're learning. So in 75% of the time, could this person accomplish this in the next 30-day sect, right, of 60s? And usually people then start moving stuff to the 90-day because it's just not fair. Have the 30, 60, 90. And then if you're really going to be a transparent boss, show it to the person in the interview. This is what I would like for this to look like. And you'll know right there if you have a yes person or if you have somebody who's like, okay, that right there is going to be a challenge. Or I already know how to do that. Move that to 30 days. We can bump that up. Have that conversation. Have that transparency. Because if there's no job description, I use the 30, 60, 90 like a job description. I don't even like a job description. Like that's not going to tell me
boring.
Much.
Yeah.
Right? So boring. Let's have a 30, 60, 90, and you're going to know exactly what this looks like.
I love that.
Okay. So final thoughts. If you could share one thing about leverage for your business, what do you want the world to know?
I'm going to use a Sondheim quote.
Okay.
Which is excited and scared. Into the woods, Little Red Riding Hood. You should feel both very excited and terrified and feel validated in those feelings. Because if you're excited, that means it's probably the right move for your business. And if you're scared, it means you're really passionate about your business. And that's a beautiful thing.
And also you should find a friend that helps you validate those feelings and not feel like you're weak or less than for feeling either one of them, because being an entrepreneur is not for the weak and it is not for the faint of heart. And you need to, just as much as we preach all the time about for your huge life choices of real estate and everything else, finances, like surround yourself with the best people and find the best people who do the best things. Do that in your life too, because you need those same types of people surrounding you to help walk through huge transitions like this in your life.
Yep. Especially when you have a transition that has directly opposing emotions behind it, then you really need that. And then go watch a musical, because I think that makes everything better.
Yes, I agree.
100%.
Awesome.
I will leave you with this one. As we were talking about, I think the biggest thing that holds people back is the word fail. And I had a 5th grade student who walked up to me and she said, I don't mind failing because it's the first attempt in learning. And so I thought that was genius of a 5th grader to go, it's okay to fail because it's just my first attempt in learning. And so I think that's the biggest takeaway for me of all this is like, if you don't try it, then you'll never know.
Right.
And so once you find the one tool, the one person, and then find the next tool and the next person, and then every time you're just learning a little bit more about like how much you can give up and still feel like you're being successful.
And your first hire doesn't have to be your forever hire. You hope it is, but it's also your first attempt at hiring. So be kind to yourself.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be like, hey, we just have different opinions on these and we're just going to part ways.
Yeah.
I'll give you a great reference. You worked hard, but I didn't do my job in the interview process. It's on me. Take ownership.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, I thank you for coming on and talking to the world of entrepreneurs, of just the ways to just kind of to retrain your way of thinking on things. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
It has been so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Yay. Well, that was episode 27, and we will see you next time. Bye.